Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Hey, everyone in, let's go. Huddle up on 3. 1, 2, 3, huddle up.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen.
Russian 3, dropping 8. Uyangalele steps up, loads and throws. It's caught. It's pitched backwards, up in the air. It's on the ground, still in Clemson's hands. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off #1 Clemson.
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Eller for the draw. And as the puck drops, the words that DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974, the Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
And now, welcome everyone to the Huddle Up Podcast.
We're not going to be fucking sunk this year. We're the Stanley Cup champions. Yeah!
Welcome, everyone. Huddle Up Podcast, live here on our Facebook page, as well as our Twitter and YouTube channels as well. We are glad you are with us on a Tuesday night, December the 8th, 2020. We have tons to talk about this week, including a major decision and challenges aplenty. But first, make sure you are following us on Facebook and Twitter at Huddle Up Podcast and on Instagram at Huddle Up Pod. Check out our home network at NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. And, of course, we stream daily at leibsports.com. That is LEEIB sports.com. Back with you here on a Tuesday night. We got Sean with us again. Sean, how's it going this week, brother?
Oh, it's going. Cold night in the Tampa Bay. Creeping down lower into the 40s. Bundled up out here in the Florida room. Keeping it cool as always. And, yeah, we're just excited to have a good show. Really start to enjoy things. Threw the QB Eagles jersey up just for kicks. Apparently there's a QB talk in Philadelphia. I haven't been on the news all day. I have no idea what's going on.
You don't know. You haven't heard yet.
I haven't heard a thing. Something about a quarterback. So
nobody's
gonna take a guess.
Nobody's reached out to you or anything.
Yeah, not a bit.
Very surprising. Very surprising. And back with us for the first time in a few weeks, Dave. Dave, how we feeling, bud?
Yeah, we're doing well. Got lucky with everything, so pretty happy about that. But glad to be back here and in the saddle with you folks.
All right. Well, it is certainly good to have you back, and we will obviously get to the NFL news later on in the show. But the college football world has been abuzz today. Of course, yeah, the Cowboys and Ravens right now. Dez Bryant missing tonight's game, also shutting it down for the remainder of the season, tested positive for COVID. So this is the second time now Dez Bryant has missed the opportunity to play against the Dallas Cowboys, as before when he was with the Saints, he had torn his Achilles. So Dez missing out yet again. But the big news today, of course, the Michigan Wolverines with 40 plus COVID cases on their team, ineligible to play this weekend against Ohio State, which currently would leave Ohio State ineligible per the Big Ten rules on returning to play for the Big Ten title game, which would come up not this coming weekend, but the following. And before we even had jumped into this and knew this was going to be a thing, we knew it was a possibility. So I kind of threw the question of the week out there: is should the Big Ten kind of change their rules? And obviously with what we saw with Coastal Carolina and BYU figuring out a way to play last week, I guess there's still a possibility that Ohio State could, reach out to a Texas A&M or some other team that's out there, find a way to play a non-conference game. But let's just kind of go under the scenario that they are not playing this weekend. They are not going to be eligible for the Big Ten title game. Should Ohio State or should the Big Ten kind of change the rules and allow Ohio State to play in the Big Ten title game, or should they just kind of stick to the rules that they had put out when they returned to play for this season? And to me, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. Like it really is. It is a when you have 40 plus cases between kids and staff and everything, like that's a terrible scenario. But like, to me, I think the Big Ten should stick to the rules that they set and just hope maybe that the committee is gonna, feel bad for Ohio State if the right cookies crumble. If Notre Dame beats Clemson and Alabama beats Florida, and those teams kind of get knocked out, and maybe you hope that the committee just goes, yeah, let's put let's put the Buckeyes in. Do I think they will change? I think they will, but I don't think they should. Sean, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, and I kind of spoke last week about the way the Big Ten handled the season altogether, where I really think the Big Ten as a whole, whether you want to talk about COVID cases or not, really dropped the ball on this season. They made a stand, said we're not playing, thinking that everybody would follow. Nobody followed, and then all of a sudden they tried jumping in late with this shortened season, which was already setting us up for kind of a bit of a failure somewhere along the line anyway. And so now you have worst case scenario because you saw the possibility coming like we did, and now Ohio State's not playing a game. And for Ohio State, it puts them in a really strange situation because, like you said, they could schedule an out-of-conference game, but then it's like, who do you schedule? Obviously, you're planning on a shorter week, so are they. But do you go out and schedule an A&M for a stronger opponent, risk losing? And then if the Big Ten had been thinking about letting you in, did you ruin your chances there? Do you schedule a patsy, which kind of shows weakness? So you have some choices there, but I think the other weird thing for the Big Ten is weeks ago Wisconsin was ruled ineligible. Now they've since tanked their season a little bit with some losses anyway. But there was no talk then. It's not like anyone in the Big Ten was like, well, we'll consider changing the rules. We'll bring up a meeting. There was nothing scheduled. It was like, sorry, guys, you're done. And is it a little different because it was their own cases? Sure. But like when you set this rule in stone, like I don't understand why they even set the rule. Like you really just kind of set this situation up once again by setting a minimum number of games. When you already were short enough anyway, why not just make that call later? Like, let a team in if they finish in first. Like, you can decide later what the tiebreakers are on an undefeated season, that kind of thing. But come up with a different way to do this. So I think it's upsetting for Ohio State, sure. I think it's embarrassing for the Big Ten anyway. And I think because of that, the Big Ten's going to have a meeting. And I've heard they already have it scheduled as far as whether they let Ohio State in. And I think they're going to at this point, in my opinion, let them play. Does it really change my opinion on Ohio State's resume at this point? Not really. I still think they haven't played really any quality teams. Indiana, you can make your argument. Whatever Indiana is, seemed to be a legitimate team, so maybe that's your one win. But other than that, in a shortened season, I don't see the resume there compared to some of these other teams, assuming what's in my head plays out in the conference title game. But definitely a disaster for the Big Ten.
Yeah, and we'll kind of touch on some of those scenarios and how things play out when we look at the college football playoff rankings here in a couple of minutes. Here, Chase, who is from Ohio, is very much adamant that they should allow Ohio State to play an out of conference game, which quite frankly I would have no problem with that. I mean, we saw how things came together last week for BYU and Coastal Carolina, but Dave, your thoughts here on should or will Ohio or the Big Ten kind of change their stance from the preseason?
Yeah, so should or will they? Quite frankly, I don't care. I have the same opinion as Sean that the Ohio State is extremely overrated right now. Their strength of schedule is in the 70s. The last time I looked earlier this week, their opponents other than Indiana have a combined record of I think it was 6-18 or something on the year. So quite frankly, I don't really care one way or the other. If I'm Ohio State's AD, I think we need another game here with Cincinnati or Texas A&M to really boost that resume. And quite frankly, you beat someone in the Big Ten title game, Northwestern probably. Big deal. I mean, Northwestern's tougher than a lot think, but you need something to really boost that resume, especially if we have some chaos here that Florida beats Alabama and Clemson beats Notre Dame. You're not getting in even if you win the Big Ten without scheduling another game there if you're Ohio State. Regardless, it's going to be an SEC versus ACC championship game here. So, or not championship, but playoffs. Do I think that they change? I think you have to change if you're the Big Ten, because realistically, Ohio State's the only team that gives you any type of chance to get into the playoff, and it's all about money, as we've said numerous times. Should they change? I agree with what both you have said. The rule's dumb to begin with. And I've heard that there's repercussions if Ohio State goes out and plays someone out of conference, that it's somewhere in there that they get in trouble. But realistically speaking, the Big Ten's not going to do anything. Ohio State runs that conference, and it really doesn't matter. But there's got to be enough schools that they could pick someone up to play. Maybe you play a BYU that was a darling last week type of thing, and can't this week, or pick up Coastal Carolina or someone that's that you should beat handedly. But I think we saw in the Indiana game that Ohio State's weakness, they have no secondary, and you got to be careful on who you schedule because they'll exploit it. It's kind of like my feelings on Notre Dame are pretty similar there, that they have some weak D-backs that can be exploited by the right team, but the run defense is fairly solid. So I think I think Notre Dame's better than Ohio State. I really don't know what to make of this Ohio State team because they floundered at the only test that they really had. They were up 21 or 28, and it came back to be a game versus Indiana. And if you're that good of a team, it should never come back that close, especially at home type of thing. So I think the Big Ten gives in and caves, though, but I really don't care. I need a win out of Ohio State against someone else to really think that they're – I don't even want to call them elite because I don't think they're elite, but worthy of being included.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Ohio State at this point, you're rooting for Alabama, you're rooting for Notre Dame. You want Clemson out of there, you want Florida out of there. You want nothing of any of those teams that are directly behind you. I think Texas A&M's season is over. So theoretically they can improve. Now, do I think their resume is better than Ohio State? I do. But the fact that tonight when the college football playoff rankings came out, once again Ohio State is above Texas A&M. So if neither team plays again, which they don't, to me that says Ohio State is going to get in over Texas A&M, which I don't necessarily agree with, but to me that's what the committee told us tonight. Then you have Iowa State. If you're probably rooting for them to not win the Big 12. Cincinnati not playing this weekend, so they're only going to have one opportunity to play Tulsa in the AAC championship. So I don't even know if they can make the jump from 8 to jump Ohio State, whether Ohio State plays again, plays again or not. So Ohio State is rooting at this point for the least amount of chaos, and by that, the teams that are highest ranked above them, the undefeated teams, continue to win. Because Herb Street said it tonight. Dave, you said it. I agree with it. Sean, I don't know if you do, but I would imagine you would, that if Florida wins the SEC title game And this is assuming that these games are close. I mean, as we talked about last week when Nick was on the show, if Notre Dame gets blown out of the water by Clemson, if Florida blows Alabama out of the water, then things get even muddier than they were before. But if
don't agree,
possibly, I mean, we're talking gigantic. But if you're within 2-3 scores, even Clemson winning by 21, Florida winning by 21, I don't see Alabama not going. I don't see Notre Dame not going. And again, especially, and the part of the reason we're having this discussion is because it gets tied back to money. Notre Dame getting in, that's money. Alabama getting in, that's money. Like those teams aren't going to go away, especially this year.
Well, yeah, and you have, I mean, obviously, like I talked about it last week with Notre Dame not going anywhere, and I mean, for Notre Dame to go anywhere, it's going to take that loss, but it's also going to take a lot of really big, strange wins from teams that are close. You know, I don't see, you know, on a regular slate of games and a regular slate of scoreboards, anything happening to Notre Dame. Now, you know, obviously Florida's got to. The thing is, if Florida winds up winning, and the way they have been, now it's going to be tough for them because their defense is still, you know, fairly weak and you know, has just kind of been fortunate to be untested here in a lot of this run. But if they were to win and their quarterback has any type of game at all, that game would decide two things. One, Florida is in, and two, that's probably your Heisman. If that guy leads the league in touchdown passes and only has thrown 3 interceptions, now maybe even he throws 2 in a game against Alabama but beats them, I don't see any reason why the quarterback Florida isn't your Heisman Trophy winner. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. You could bet my house on it. Please just take it. Anyway, but Ohio State has a really strange scenario here too. I didn't really add to it, but if you are going to schedule out a conference, they have the strange situation of strangely being able to beef up their resume without having to play what many would consider a power school, because you may have Cincinnati looking for a leapfrog game, and at this point, why wouldn't Coastal Carolina want to play another one? Would I want to play Ohio State and risk like a New Year's Day bowl? I probably wouldn't. I'd probably chalk it up, say, look what we did. We're pretty great. We're not in the playoff, but like we're all. But if they added Ohio State and somehow beat them, all of a sudden I'd make the argument that Coastal Carolina is in the discussion, depending what else happens, because you would now add wins against a top 10 BYU and what everybody considers a proverbial top 4 Ohio State. You add those, that's as good a resume as anybody else up there in the top 4. So you have a chance to schedule what some would consider a lesser team and still beef up your resume, but you risk that team jumping you.
Yeah, if I'm Coastal Carolina, I mean, I'm dialing Columbus, Ohio all day. I am not stopping hitting the redial button on that one. But you know, it's because right now it's Tuesday. Obviously, you know, we saw how quickly BYU Coastal Carolina came together. We'll keep an eye on that. If you you know, stick with us on you know, our Facebook and Twitter and all of that, we'll stay on top of it as much as we can. And Sean, yeah, you brought up the Heisman trophy. We haven't checked in on the Heisman watch. This feels like such a strange year because you know, you have broken schedules and things like that. Like it feels like it's almost been a forgotten award. You know, Mac Jones, quarterback of Alabama, at least according to ESPN, is sitting currently at number 1. Kyle Trask, the quarterback from Alabama, number 2. Trevor Lawrence, 3. Devonta Smith, the wide receiver for Alabama, is number 4. Justin Fields, Ian Book, Najee Harris, Jared Patterson, the running back from Buffalo, you know, kind of rounding out this top 5, top 6 for the Heisman. But really, like right now, and I said, you know, I said to my wife this weekend, I said, you know, it's a kind of a strange year when Notre Dame is number 2 in the country. They're 10-0, and their starting quarterback isn't anywhere near the Heisman discussion. And I mean, I know they were kind of building it up on NBC that you know, he should get some looks, and I think Ian Book has had a fantastic season, but it's been very quiet because it's very different than what the college football game kind of has become with high scoring offense and whatnot, because Notre Dame has kind of played a great run game. Ian Book has been great running the ball, and Notre Dame's really done it. With their defense. So to me, as I'm looking at it, and Dave, we'll go to you first after me, and then to Sean. I look at Mac Jones at Alabama. I look at Kyle Trask. To me, it's down to those two, and I think whoever wins the SEC title game, because I think that's where voting ends after the conference championship games. To me, that's your Heisman winner. I mean, any of these guys behind them would have to have like unbelievable. I mean, like Trevor Lawrence would probably have to have like a 6-7 touchdown game against Notre Dame or something at this point to surpass any of these two. Possibly, if Trask has a big enough game, but Florida's defense kind of blows it, maybe he can get it in a loss. But I think it comes down to which quarterback wins this SEC title.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. It's really coming down to the SEC title game. I mean, the Vegas odds, I think you can get Trevor Lawrence 10 to 15 to 1 right now if you really think he's going to make a run and the third favorite there. But I think it's between Trask and Mac Jones, which is kind of disappointing because I think you look at the best college player this year, and I think you got to go between the wide receiver at Alabama and the tight end for Florida. And Pitts, I think is his name in Florida, but I can never remember the damn wide receiver in Alabama's name that you said earlier. But you look at the best college football player, and those two are the top of the line there, I think, from a lot that I've seen this year. But I think you've pretty much hit it spot on. And the thing that'll be interesting is if they have a pretty similar game, do Trask's numbers that are better than Mac Jones's take precedence here and give him the win type of thing? Or is it going to, kind of reference the game and how the game flows type of thing too? And Florida tends to pass the ball a little bit more than Alabama does, so that might play into Trask's hands a little bit too. But it'll be very interesting to see. But the other thing, kind of squirting around here a little bit, but I think that both Alabama and Notre Dame are locked in no matter what happens in the title games. That there's no way that they're falling out, even if they get blown out 35+. I think they're both locked in no matter what happens. So I really think that there's two spots left, and we'll talk about that later. But that's kind of my gut feeling on that before I forget it.
By the way, Sean, a passing touchdown for Lamar Jackson. So. Any hope that you had, I think, is pretty much cooked at this point.
Yeah, I saw. That was pretty much it. My only hope at that point was a soft tissue injury. That would have been about the only chance I had left.
This Cowboys defense has more holes than a screen factory.
It's unreal. And although interesting breaking news from that game, Justin Tucker missed a 36-yard field goal, which ends 36, ends an NFL record 70 consecutive kicks under 40 yards was the number for Justin Tucker before that miss.
I'm kind of surprised it was only 70. He's so damn automatic.
I know, right? Well, I'm thinking that once they're inside 40 yards, they just score touchdowns up to this point. So I don't know. It's pretty crazy. But good stat.
Yeah. Any thoughts there to the Heisman, Sean?
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it. As far as that. And I'm kind of with you. I think the winner of that SEC title game probably did. I was a big fan of the dark horse from BYU, but with their loss, I think he kind of needed to go unbeaten to do it. He's still going to get drafted incredibly high.
Oh, sure.
Heard a lot of whispers of Denver loving him, which would be a very short trip from BYU. Would be a pretty nice fit for him. We all know Denver has a great track record over the last 20 years of drafting quarterbacks. So
isn't Drew Lock a rookie?
But that's what they're saying. They're saying Denver loves him. They might draft. I haven't seen a lot out of Drew Lock to crown him. I'm not saying that you want to replace him, but never a bad idea to have a backup plan. But yeah, I think kind of like Dave said, I think there's some players, and when you look at the Heisman watch, there have been a lot of years where defensive players were probably the best player in college football, and you're never going to talk about them. Wide receivers get missed. Generally, it's just like the NFL MVP. If you're not a running back, you're never going to even maybe challenge a quarterback for it.
Yeah.
At least not often enough. So, unfortunately, that's just the way the world works now. So if you ever want to win a Heisman Trophy, you better learn how to throw a football, or at least run an option, one of the two. But yeah, I think we kind of touched on the head on that. Heisman's pretty much locked down to 2, maybe 3 if there's a dark horse I'm unaware of.
Yeah, and we had kind of touched on kind of our thoughts on where the college football playoff and who those top 4 will be. We hit on that last week. So as we jump into our pick'ems for the week now, Sean, Last week we both went 1-2 in college football.
Yeah, great week.
Yeah, real great. So you maintain that 4-game lead. I'm at 25-19. You're at 29 and 15 currently. But I was gonna do a pick on the Michigan Ohio State game just because we were talking about Ohio State, and I think the spread when I looked at it was like
I'm gonna pick that they don't play
29. Well, there you go. I'm not gonna mark that down officially, but something that kind of has been brought up in the news as well, because 2 out of the 5 games I had written down to pick have already been canceled for COVID. Obviously we've talked at various points throughout this season about the contract and status at Michigan of Jim Harbaugh. And a lot of the news over the past 24, 36 hours has been that they're actually now looking at extending Jim Harbaugh for a few more seasons. And which has kind of really raised the eye of people, especially Michigan fans. But for me, what this kind of, I think, boils down to, I'm not very shocked by it because I think, and from listening to like Dan Patrick over the past couple days, and just what we've seen over history is Jim Harbaugh is about to enter his final year of his contract at Michigan. So you have one of 2 choices. You either fire him now or you extend him, because with college football, obviously recruiting is such a huge part of what college football is. And if you have a 1-year coach who has not been renewed, not been extended, you're looking at a situation where he's probably only going to be there for one final season. That's not really going to help when you're sitting across from a high school student saying, yeah, I'm going to be here when you come to the University of Michigan. I'm going to be your head coach. So, there's been no numbers attached to it, but it sounds like it's a situation of a multi-year extension where it would be less of a buyout, less annual salary. Because right now Jim Harbaugh is like the 3rd or 4th highest paid college football. He's like eight almost $9 million a year. I think only Dabo, Nick Saban, and I forget the third one.
Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, probably still Charlie Weiss, if we're being honest. So what this does is it kind of takes some of that salary away and its incentive. So if Michigan does, go to the Big Ten title game, go to the college football playoff, then Harbaugh is going to make more money. But if they kind of do what they've been doing and 8, 9, 10 win seasons, but you don't go to a playoff, you don't win a bowl game, then it's less of a hit and the buyout would be less. So are you more shocked that at this point, based on what we've seen at the University of Michigan this year, we'll go to Sean, that Harbaugh there's talk of him being extended or that he's not been fired? Like what is kind of maybe more surprising to you on that front?
I mean, to me, it's still him having a job. I mean, I was pretty sure that not only was it not going to be talk of an extension, that there was a chance this was going to end mid-year. And I know it's a strange year, and I know you can blame it on COVID if you want to, but it's not, it's not that far of a stretch that with the seasons that Michigan's been having that like a bad season wasn't on the horizon. And maybe the shortened COVID season was a gift in disguise for Harbaugh. Like maybe it was going to be a tank year and an awful year, and then the lack of games, you're like, well, it's a crazy year. Whoops. I don't know. Maybe it worked out in his favor. Now the incentives in the contract and the inner workings of it, at least from what they're saying, seem to make sense if you are going to extend him. I think for me, it's the fact that you're looking to extend at this point. I don't know. I mean, I understand from a recruiting standpoint, he's a better name and having stability, something, but he's going to clean house on the staff to whether it's scapegoating or just trying to shake something up. That staff's going to be gutted. So it's not like what the offense is going to look like.
I would hope and assume that somewhere in the agreement of an extension that Don Brown gets fired as your defensive coordinator.
Well, I think as far as anything, I think you're going to see a complete overhaul. I think you're going to have new coordinators with their own opportunity to hire coaches beneath. I don't think it's going to be like one or two guys. I think it's going to be Harbaugh and a whole new slate. So
probably similar to what Notre Dame and Brian Kelly did after the
probably
season.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So that's what you're going to see. So, I mean, maybe things look up for him. I don't know. I mean, I wish him the best, but he's got to turn it around against Ohio State and try to win himself at least a bowl game here in the next 2 years.
He's not going to lose to Ohio State.
This will be the first year.
This will be the first time
he will not lose
to Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Dave, more surprised that Harbaugh is still has a job or that he's getting extended? Potentially.
Yes.
Perfect answer.
Yes, I mean the jackass denounced gambling like 3 years ago, so he's on my hate list to begin with. So we'll just leave it at that. That whatever comes to him, he deserves, and get a new pair of khakis with the money while you can there, Bodog Jim. But a couple other interesting coaching rumors I've heard. I'm not wasting any more time talking about that garbage state up north there. So I heard that there's a strong possibility Urban Meyer's going to Texas. I know I was tweeting you about that or texting you, whatever it was, and that was one I heard. And I heard that USC is going to buy out Cristobal. He is his buyout goes down by like $4 million January 15th, something like that. So once day after that it costs them $4 million less or something, they're going to buy him out type of thing. So two big ones that will probably be on the market there, or one that's off the market, and then one that's going to be back on the market, for lack of better terms. But I think we can agree on one thing and I know that there's some Chip Kelly love-hate here, but man, I'd love to see him back out west and running something somewhere just to put that college offense in. That was so much fun to watch. Can't do a damn thing in the NFL, but to watch him in college, that was he's
coaching UCLA, isn't he?
UCLA, but give him some talent or something.
Yeah, really.
Like those Oregon years, man, they were fun.
Oh, that was fantastic. Now, I thought I had seen on Sunday that Urban Meyer he's kind of shut down the prospect of Texas. Now we've seen these things over the years where it's a kind of more of a money play. Like, I'm not coming back. Well, here's $2 more million. Okay, he twisted my arm.
I heard they were looking
called my bluff.
12 and 13 and a half mil a year. So I don't know how true that was or anything, but again, rumors and everything. So, it's like everyone's got an opinion type of thing. But if that one has any materiality to it, you make him the highest paid coach, and that would be interesting. And you're in a very winnable conference that you get 2 years of recruiting, and you could turn that conference upside down. I mean, there's really not a single conference.
He could walk in there and within 1 or 2 seasons of recruiting, and he could basically be the Big 12 champion for half a decade or more, just based on his ability to recruit defensive players.
I agree. I think that's one thing that COVID's really shown, and I do think it's unfair for a lot of these coaches, that are, I don't want to say being, hand-strung, hand-tied, whatever you want to call it, but a lot of these coaches are getting the short end of the stick, and some of them deservedly so. I'm looking at you, Michigan, but these coaches are put in it's a situation that they've never been in before, and the coaches that are succeeding are clearly the ones that can rally and motivate their troops, for lack of better terms. And it's not talent helps and everything, but you look at coaches and leadership and things like that, and the ones that are really rallying the troops, bonding with the team is really what's getting it done. I mean, look at Indiana that came out of nowhere, for lack of better terms.
Awesome.
And some of these guys, and you could tell that I can never remember his name. Hearn, is it Tom Hearn, something like that? But you could tell that he cares about these kids, and he's got 60 boys out there that are his sons that are playing every week, and it's that type of attitude that has gotten a lot of these little schools, for lack of better terms, playing real well this year.
Yeah, and I mean that's been a big difference, over the past handful of years with Brian Kelly, as he's really kind of changed his approach to dealing with his athletes from the his early years at Notre Dame, when you're seeing him purple faced on the sideline and just blowing a gasket. That when a guy makes a mistake, he kind of pulls him in and is just kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he he's kind of approached himself a little bit, and it's paid dividends for 3 straight 10 plus win seasons, and the Cowboys just missed a field goal. Which, why are you kicking field goals at this point anyway, you cowards?
Zerline's your best player.
But I'm fine with it. The more the Cowboys lose, the better for me at this point.
Got to cover, baby.
Like for the Cowboys to lose, then that puts him in a great position for Jerry to screw up the number 3 pick in the draft. So, but let's go to some games to predict. This one, not neither team in the top 25, but it is one of the most recognizable games in college football on this season. It is 3-2 Navy taking on 7-2 Army. And this one, normally taking place Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New York. This one actually taking place at Army up there in West Point. So a different look to this game, a different feel to this game, but it should be a blast nonetheless. Army is a 6.5 point favor, which I think I saw is the first time they've been favored by this many points since like the early 90s or something like that. 36.5 is your over under 3:00 on CBS. Nothing against Navy. This is one of those ones where over the last couple of years, we've seen this shift a little bit. Navy, for one reason or the next, just has had a couple of years of struggle. So I like Army here. I think they're even going to cover the 7.5 or the 6.5. But I'm going to actually go under on this one, and just because I don't like the other two games that ended up being this one by default is going to be my lock.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Dave, Navy Army.
We're gonna go with Navy here. Just go opposite of you, and surely the motivational aspect of playing the Service Academy games, that the records don't matter and that type of thing. Army should boat race them. How's that for a good one? Should boat race them, and win this pretty handily. A lot more talented squad, obviously, but. Two service academies that like to run the ball, so the under should be the correct play in theory. But we'll take who'd I pick? Navy catching this.
You don't even know who you picked.
I picked opposite of Jim. It's a good pick.
Me. I picked Army, so you picked Navy.
Yeah. Row the boat.
Sean, Army, Navy.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough because I think a part of me wants to, take the underdog in this one just because it's kind of one of those, like, it's all you can play for. Unfortunately, I think track record wise, I'm looking at what these teams have done this year, and Army's look real good. I mean, they've had a couple rough outings, but kind of, there's a reason why they're favored by more than usual. Not to mention Dave took Navy. So, even though the COVID didn't get you, your pick still will. We're going to go ahead. Yeah. Too soon. Anyway. Wow. Went there. I've been saving that joke. It sounded a lot better in my head. I think I delivered it poorly, much like Navy will. So I'm going to take Army. I'm going to agree with Jim on this one. I think Army's going to cover. I am going to go the other way on the over-under, though. I think 38 sounds low. Probably isn't, but because Navy's going to put up a fight, I think, they're going to maybe you see some quick scores, you see a little trickery, and they just crack into the 40s. I'll take the over.
All right, then we go to Miami, Florida, the University of North Carolina. They are 6-3. They are at Miami, and I forgot to write down what their latest ranking, because the college football playoff ranking just came out. So North Carolina 17, Miami is 10. So Miami, a 3.5 point home favorite, over under 66.5. This one at 3:30 on ABC. North Carolina, they are a team. Obviously we saw them with Notre Dame the other week. Lost to them. They lost to some troubling games. They lost to Florida State and Virginia, but they still put up points. And maybe it's just the Notre Dame fan in me. Maybe it's my hatred of all things Hurricane. But I like North Carolina to cover. I think North Carolina is going to win this game. I like the over. I think both offenses are going to move the ball. North Carolina, besides that game against Notre Dame, one of the most high-powered offenses in the country. So Tar Heels and to cover and the over. So Sean, what do you got?
Well, I agree with you on the over. I think you're going to see a lot of points. And I do like North Carolina. I think North Carolina is a program, and I think it's great when you have a powerhouse in one sport starting to put things together again in another sport. So I think it's great for the Tar Heels to be this competitive in college football. in addition to just being what many consider a basketball school. So I'm happy for him. I just don't see it happening. I feel like it's fairly neutral. Both teams have had a few weeks off. The COVID's kind of gotten a hold of the ACC schedule here too a little bit, and I think with that layoff, it just comes down to who I think the more talented team is. And unfortunately to say so, I think it is the Miami Hurricanes. I think the defense is a little better. I think that they have the ability to stop teams a little more than North Carolina does. So I'm going to take the Canes here. I'm going to take the Canes to cover at home, and they're going to push this score up and take it over.
Dave, how about you?
We're gonna go with UNC losing this game by a field goal, and then we're gonna go with the under as well. Sam Howell is pretty dang clutch in the fourth quarters here, but he's gonna come up just short on the game-winning drive here or something like that. But give me Carolina to cover the 3 and a hook, and give me the under barely. It's gonna be a hold your nose under here.
The Ravens have 161 rushing yards in the first half.
Yeah, there was a point where they were averaging like 9 yards a rush and only 4 yards per pass in the first half.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd be happy the Cowboys are going to have a top 5 pick, but that's only one pick.
Do you just draft defense?
Can you literally just draft a defense?
A whole one. We'd like
the third pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the Cowboys draft defense.
We draft the entire defense from the University of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I would be totally fine with that. All right, then we go to the Big Ten. Wisconsin just dropping out of the top 25. They're technically at 26. They're 2-2. They're at number 16, Iowa, who is 5-2. They are a 1-point home favorite. 42.5 is the over/under, which feels like a Wisconsin-Iowa game. This one at 3:30 on FS1. I don't know what Wisconsin is, and I feel like they've had such a broken schedule, due to the COVID and everything. So I'm going to take Iowa to cover, obviously, and win this game. Over? I don't know. I have no clue about either of these teams. But yeah, Iowa plus and the over. Dave.
I'm going to take Iowa and the over as well. I think this Iowa team's pretty under the radar and pretty talented. You get a lot of tight ends here, the tight end nation, for lack of better terms, that they brew more tight ends than I think any other school in the country. Cole Kmet's out of Iowa, I do believe, and pretty talented in the NFL right
Notre
now.
Dame,
but
Cole Kmet's at Notre Dame, which is where the rest of the tight ends come from.
Over.
Yeah, the rest of the tight ends come from Notre Dame, which is where
Iowa or Notre Dame. That's it.
Also, hang on to that name; you might hear it later.
A little preview. Sean, Wisconsin and Iowa.
Yeah, in the midst of all the COVID scatterings and the gaps in the schedule, I've been riding Wisconsin to a grisly slide here at the end of the year. I like all my wrong picks. I think 2 or 3 of my wrong picks over the last month have been taking a Wisconsin in a comeback game and saying they're going to run all over an opponent. So I refuse to do it another time. I'm going to ride with you guys. That way, if I lose, so do you. So I'm going to take Iowa as well.
Strategy at this point for you, right?
Yeah, it's just strategy. This game in particular, I don't mind going with my brain, but I know this is the one. So if you're betting in Vegas, think Badgers, because I've jumped ship. I'm on the other side of the ship, and if it's going down, I'm drowning with you guys. And sure, I'll take the over. Why not?
Why not? All right, we are going to pause here. Well, the other game I was going to have was going to be Cincinnati and Tulsa. That one also canceled due to COVID. The AAC championship will be between these two teams, whichever is ranked higher in the college football playoff next week, which obviously should be the Cincinnati Bearcats. So we're going to pause here for our commercial break. Stick with us on the other side, where we have some NFL discussions about teams tanking, as well as our weekly pick'em. Stick with us. Huddle Up Live.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app. That's arenaeats.app for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis on all things sports. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, subscribe to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports, and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop. Welcome back, Huddle Up Podcast. We are live here on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. We're glad you can be with us here on a Tuesday night. Dave had to jump out, being dad duty calls, but we were glad to have Dave back on the show this week, and hopefully, I think we'll have fingers crossed, the full crew here next week as we continue towards the end of the football seasons, and so Sean, we look to the NFL now, and before we get to the pick'ems this week in the NFL, this weekend we saw the Jets almost screw themselves out of the number one overall pick, but what was a pretty well thought out or pretty classless defensive play, there at the end, depending how you look at it. To me, if this right here is case in point, hammer at home. The Jets are putting this season in the tank, without question. But like in my mind, it brought this question of like, does the NFL have any responsibility to try to protect the quote unquote integrity of the game or anything like that? Like, is there anything that the NFL can do, should do, to try and keep teams from doing this? Or is it just, and I know like the Jets came out and they fired Greg Williams. Okay. So to me, all that is like, hey man, you were going to be out of a job this year at the end of the season when Gase gets fired anyhow. Mission accomplished. We blew that play. Hell, he probably got a bonus upon his firing. That's my assumption. But like, I'm just looking at this and like for years, this is kind of the reason why I've always said I enjoy college football better than the NFL, because why there's no incentive, there's no reason, there's no drive for these guys to try to win. Like in the college game, they're playing for themselves, they're playing for their future. These guys, they're going out, they're getting their paycheck, which is what they're literally paid to do, but it doesn't matter if they win or lose. And the Jets clearly they had an objective this week, they met that objective this week. Do you think there's anything the league can or should do to try to discourage this from happening?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, short of if you can make the money follow wins and losses, maybe. If you can kind of if you finish that last place, sure, you get the pick, but you get a lesser percentage of the pie via profit sharing, something like that. Maybe there's like a bonus pool from the owners that the bottom half don't get, something like that. But I don't know. It's pretty hard when you're down at the very last spot to really have any incentive for being second worst. Like I don't really know what your incentive would be, especially when like the real money is in winning. So like, I don't know. I feel like I don't think teams try to lose. I really don't. This sure felt like it. But I don't know. I feel like from an organizational standpoint, you might be hoping you do, and from a fan standpoint, you might be hoping you do. But there's a lot of proud guys out there, whether or not you want to admit it, Sure, they get paid either way, but nobody wants to sit out there and get beaten their heads in and not win a game for 16 games. Nobody wants that. And I think you saw, unfortunately for the Jets, when you're filling in guys and you're bringing in, Rashad Perriman's there on his first year, you're talking about drafting a quarterback, so it's not like Darnold's going to lay down,
Right.
So like, he's either
somewhere.
auditioning for the other 31 teams or he's trying to convince them that, hey, you know what, I'm not dead yet. And then you get guys, Frank Gore. First of all, Frank Gore's just going to play his heart out until he's 100 years old,
right? Which is like 2 years from now. So
yeah, every year, 60 yards, 60 yards a game, maybe a touchdown every game since he's been like 30. It's just 65 yards, one score. I'll get you that.
He came in the league when Walter Payton came in, right? Frank Gore.
It's like Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers came in with Gale, yeah. But man, they got beat twice because like the play before, Derek Carr had a receiver down the middle of the field wide open, and he overthrew him.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, good. All right, well, good job, Jets. My Jets theory is still playing out. And then they rushed 6, which, by the way, there was a radio show I was listening to. They broke down, it was over the last 15 or 20 years or something, this type of last-second play. From roughly the same distance, there were 258 or 259 plays. This is the only time in all those plays that more than 4 guys were sent after the quarterback. The first time in 258 similar plays, which is a play you don't hope for,
right?
But you kind of plan for because you're like, hey, we got a close lead. Someone's going to throw into the end zone. We got to be ready for this. And then, it was literally we're going to rush 6. And how does no one on that defense be like, no, we're not? Like a defensive end's like, I'm going to cover, guys. You're just cool with it. And then to get beat on a double move as if Henry Ruggs was going to do anything else than try. Like he cuts back infield and the defensive back bought it. Like he was going to go underneath. And I'm like, how are you a starting corner in the NFL? Your only job, the only thing a defensive coordinator is supposed to tell you is don't let anybody behind you. I don't care what it takes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to get beat on a double move,
which
I'm going inside. No, you're not.
Tells me that I don't mean to be this guy, and I don't mean to be conspiracy theory, tin hat,
But you're going to be.
But that's. It's
awful.
And
the fact that Adam Gase has a job means he's been given the pass.
Right.
They're like, look, you suck. And he's like, yeah, but I can make sucking look like I didn't try it.
Because I saw a lot of people saying that, well, how can they fire Greg Williams, but Adam Gase still has a job? I'm like, how many times you see a team fire their coach and the team gets motivated and they end up winning a couple of games? They don't want to do that.
No. They're going to let him ride out the season. And it's probably on the promise that he gets to coach next year.
If the Jaguars keep losing, why would the Jets win? You know what I mean? Because if the Jets lose that game, the Jaguars, I forget how the breakdown worked. I think it's conference wins or something like that. The Jaguars become the number 1 pick.
Oh wow! See, I did the math last week on my own, and I was very difficult to do, looking at all the tiebreakers, and I needed the Jets to lose too, so I was safe.
Yeah, no.
But now that I know,
it'd be the Jaguars. So
Jaguars are going to lose out. They're going to have one win.
They're not Mike. The fact that they're still starting Mike Glennon tells me that they want Trevor Lawrence. So it really is a battle for Trevor Lawrence at this point. I'm still even maybe trying to figure out how the Cowboys could maybe end up.
I think it'd be awesome if there was a COVID case and the league was like, you know what, you guys have to play each other week 18. And they play to a 0-0 tie.
0-0 tie. Neither team, the team's just they keep getting safeties. The quarterbacks keep running backwards.
Throws it backwards out of the end. Oops.
It ends up being 32-32 tie because it was a bunch of safeties. But
yeah, between those two teams, there's literally 4 quarterbacks auditioning for jobs. They're like, yeah, I can throw, and then they're like, no, Gardner, you can't.
So. Oh yeah, that's wonderful. So, I guess Dez found out about his positive COVID case, right before the game. So he obviously was taken out of the game, but playing against the Cowboys, like he's out there hugging Cowboys players and stuff in the pregame. So
yep,
that's great. That's what you want to see.
Well, you said you wanted to keep losing.
Well, that's true. That's true. But yeah. So
have you seen the Dez meme with like him and the catch in Green Bay? And it's like the COVID virus. It's brilliant. And it's literally like Dez caught it.
The internet remains undefeated, though.
Undefeated.
The internet forever.
Internet will always find a way.
We'll always find a way. All right, let's go here, Sean, to the pick'ems for this week. Now I closed the gap, Sean. I closed the gap one this week. I was 3-1. You were 2-2. I am now 26-21 on the season. You are 27-20. So it's getting close. It's getting close here with a few weeks to go. So we start.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to keep Adam Gase as my coach. If I lose, I'm going to keep him.
Oh, there you go. We're going to start in Los Angeles, Inglewood. This Thursday night, it is the 6-6 New England Patriots showing signs of life, getting up off the mat like the Undertaker.
Did not see that coming.
Did not see that coming at all. They are at the 8-4 Rams, who are a 6-point home favorite. 44.5 is your over-under on this one at Thursday, 8:20 on Fox and the NFL Network. Call me crazy. I don't know if I'm buying into the hype, or what exactly happened this past weekend, but maybe Bill Belichick smells blood in the water and he's going for the kill now. I like New England to cover. Whether they win this game, I don't know, but I'm still not totally sold on the Rams. And if Bill Belichick thinks he can get into the playoffs, I like my odds with old Bill. So I'm going to go Patriots to cover, and I'm going to take the over. 44.5 feels like a very low number in the National Football League. Because didn't the Patriots just score like 42 this past weekend?
Now there was like 3 defensive and special team touchdowns, but yes.
But yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because I was in your league. Not only was it going against Baker Mayfield, F that guy, I was going against the Patriots defense and special teams, F those guys. But I like New England this week to cover and the over.
Well, I've been pretty high on the Rams. I picked them the other week when they beat the Seahawks. I chose not to a few weeks later take the Rams, and they went and won anyway. And the more I'm watching this, I'm on the other end of the boat with the Rams, where I'm starting to believe in them. I think they're probably the best all-around football team in the West. I feel like their defense, with Ramsey on one side and the defensive front that they have, it doesn't quite remind me of the Seahawks defense a few years ago. But I feel like it's as effective almost. And, it looked like Henderson was falling off the rails a little bit in the running game. But Cam Akers appears to have picked up where he left off. And as long as McVay has a running game, he can make Jared Goff look great, which he did this past week as well, and a great rebound game for them. I like the Rams. Now 6 is a lot of points, especially against Bill Belichick, especially in and this is a Super Bowl rematch from a few years ago. Let's not forget the most boring Super Bowl of the last few years. Real sleeper. I think this game's going to be a little bit more high scoring, but give me Goff in that running game ahead of Cam Akers or ahead of Cam Newton and the Patriots. I think last week looks a little bit better than it was. A lot of that was defensive, and I think it's a little harder to key in on McVay's offense than it is on a rookie quarterback that just hasn't seen those kind of looks. I think he took advantage of Herbert, and I have him in my fantasy league, so I'm hoping that was just a 1 week slip for Herbert because we need him going forward. So Justin, don't panic. It's not your haircut. Don't change anything. You're going to be fine. But in this game, I'll take the Rams, and I'm going to take the over.
All right, then we go to Sunday at 1 o'clock on CBS. You got the 11-1 defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and now playoff-bound Kansas City Chiefs clinching this past Sunday, along with the New Orleans Saints, who's the only 2 teams that have clinched so far. And I think the Jets and Bengals are your 2 teams that have been eliminated so far. The Chiefs are a 7.5-point road favorite at 8-4 Miami, who has to continue to win not only to keep their wild card hopes alive, but still a game back in the AFC East. So my one of my 2 least likely scenarios last week already went awry because I said Tua would not take another snap for the Dolphins this year, and he started and won. So I was off on that one. But I will bring this up. Actually, no, I'll wait until the final game of our pick'ems. I like the Chiefs here. I just, we've talked, multiple times this season about good teams versus great teams, and there are very few, I think, great teams in the National Football League this year. However, Kansas City is one of those great teams, so I think they're going to continue their winning ways. They're going to cover the 7.5. I'm going to take the over. I think the Chiefs' offense is going to find ways to score on this Miami defense. So Kansas City in the over.
Yeah, I mean, you look at you're looking at a Kansas City team that has pretty much been on the closest thing to a skid that I think they've gone on all year. A couple of real close wins here against Denver and Tampa Bay and Las Vegas, and even back before their bye against Carolina, that was a one-score game. So you have like 4 straight games. Defense hasn't looked great. The defense actually did look pretty great, all but against Denver. But didn't manage to keep them in that game long enough to find a way to win. So it's kind of a struggle. I think this would be the ideal spot if the Chiefs were looking at moving that bye week at all. This is where you'd want it. You'd want a chance to kind of get that going. But at the same time, I am buying Miami as a legitimate team. Their defense, very effective, great on special teams. It's very rare that jumps out. Usually it's like a Bill Belichick stat for me to say, wow, what a great team on special teams, for that to jump out at you. But the Dolphins are doing a lot on those two sides of the ball. Unfortunately, as long as Tua is under center, there's only so far the offense can go. In my opinion, I mean, do I think the guy's got a very high ceiling for a career? Sure. You obviously saw a lot at Alabama. I think that the kid's athletic abilities, phenomenal. But I don't see anything with the offense that's in place and the players that are there for him. I'm just not seeing it with Tua. I still think if you're trying to win this year, Fitzpatrick's your better bet. And I will stick to that gun all year.
Yeah, I will agree with you.
And I think they're still just looking to the future. And if they fall into the playoffs, they fall in. I don't think they're playing. But this is by far the best team in their most recent run they're going to see. And I think that 7 points is kind of tempting you to go with the Miami that's been playing. And I think it's wrong. I think you stick with Kansas City. Andy Reid's got to get this together. If their defense can show up at all and keep Tua the way he's been playing, I think you're going to see this one by a couple of scores. It's going to go over, and you can lock this one up.
Oh, we got a lock.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
My man, Big Red. Now he's looking at being the #1 record in football, thanks to those the Steelers dropping one. I think he smells blood and a chance at a first-round bye, get that bye week back.
Yeah, only one bye week this year in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So then we go to Tampa Bay, right down there in currently chilly Tampa Bay. And if that holds, I think Brady's going to be a little happier than the warmer weather we saw earlier this year. You got 6-6 Minnesota staying alive in the playoff fight because of their overtime win over the Jaguars this past weekend. They travel to the Buccaneers 7-5, coming off the bye week. 6.5 point home favorite, 52.5 is your over under 1:00 on Fox. For me, Minnesota, they've just kind of been one of these baffling teams that going into the year, I felt like they're a defensive team who you need your offense to subsidize you. Now I feel like they're an offensive team who can't get their defense to get on board. And
yeah, they were an offensive team pretty early in the year. They were very offensive.
They absolutely were. And to me, that's a recipe for disaster. You have a Tampa Bay offense that has been playing much better, over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, you had a game where Brady threw a few interceptions, but Gronk's starting to look and feel like Gronk. Antonio Brown's even making a couple plays. Receivers are getting healthy. Brady's starting to find a relationship with Mike Evans. All of these things should be very problematic if you're a Vikings fan right now, and especially coming off the bye. I don't think you give Tom Brady multiple weeks to prepare you. I don't care if it is in a big doofus, Bruce Arians offense.
Dumbass.
I think he's a crappy coach, but you give Tom Brady 2 weeks to prepare, and you have a defense that can't stop Mike Glennon and the Jaguars. Give me Tampa Bay to win this game. Give me Tampa Bay to cover the 6.5 in this one. I'm going to take the under just because I think that the Tampa Bay's defense has been playing well enough to slow down the Vikings. But the most important part here is that you can lock it up.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
All right, Sean, Vikings and Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at this one, and I'm kind of smelling the Buccaneers a little bit different than you are. I'm a lot closer. I can actually smell the stench of Bruce Arians from here. Lot going wrong. You tell me how well the offense is clicking now, and I guess you could say that. I think Mike Evans is doing well, but Mike Evans has his share of drops. They're still not real sure what they're doing with Antonio Brown. Gronk does seem to have woken up, but I feel like it only happens late in games because nothing else seems to be working. I'll give it to Ronald Jones. Rojo's doing everything he can down here to be like, just run the ball like a normal damn football team. You know what I mean? Like, just run the ball. I got you. And then they're like, yeah, we would do that, but we're just going to hit this guy deep and let Tom throw a pick. The big issue you're seeing right now, and one of the reasons I think Gronk's starting, so I think Brady's getting frustrated because unlike what he always had in New England, he always had a pass-catching back, whether it was Burkhead, James White, those kind of things. They don't have that right now. And ironically, the Buccaneers kind of have that guy. You have a LaShawn McCoy on your roster. You also have a young rookie in Keyshawn Vaughn, who's very similar, that kind of build. And the fact that Arians refuses to get that kind of comfortability for Tom. I understand you're proud of your offense and you're proud of how good it is and you're proud of your track record. But there comes a point where you kind of have to be like, well, this is the guy I have, and I got to win games. So I'm going the other way on Tampa. I think they're struggling to figure things out. And as far as Minnesota goes, you have a tale of two teams. You're looking at 6-6 teams, tale of two halves. Started the season 1-5, since are 5-1, including wins against the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, who at the time were both instrumental. I know the Bears aren't great, but at the time they were vying for first place in that division. They did beat your Dallas. They did lose to your Dallas Cowboys. Still not quite sure what happened there, but yeah, they got in some tough games against Carolina and Jacksonville. But you had Mike Glennon trying to prove he's a quarterback, which I don't know if he did. Not really, but they found a way to win, and that's why I think they're going to do that again here today. I'm taking Minnesota to cover those points. I'm taking them to win outright. I think Minnesota is going to come down here. I just feel like somehow sportscasters and the real Buccaneers fans are still overconfident. Despite the slide, despite everything, I heard one radio sportscaster guy down here tell me that he locked up that Tampa's still. He's like, stop it, Tampa is going to the playoffs. It's this kind of overinflated nothing can go wrong. And I'm like, things are going wrong. It's like sitting on the Hindenburg and be like, well, we haven't hit the ground yet. You know what I mean? Like things are falling apart. Arians is calling out Brady. Brady's trying not to call out Arians. Antonio Brown's just dying to blow something up or hit a woman or something. He's just ready to explode. He's just throw me a ball or I'm going to slap a woman. You know what I mean? Something. And then, but yeah, I'm almost disappointed. I haven't heard anything from Antonio Brown, but good for him. I make my jokes, but he seems to have put it together at least since the last fiasco. Yeah. At least he's got somebody covering up real well. Either way, I think it goes over. I think you're going to see a good bit of points. Kirk Cousins is playing, in my opinion, over the last few weeks, better football than Tom Brady has been. I think he's looked like I'm not saying he is a top 8 or 7 quarterback in the NFL, but he's looked like it over the past few weeks. And I think even though it's a tougher test, he finds a way to win this game.
All right.
That was a long bit. Maybe it's because I live here, but I needed to get all of that out.
You hear all the sports radio and the sports talk down there.
It's been dying to just eat the team alive and spit them out. Yeah.
So you did say Vikings and the over, correct?
Vikings to win outright and the over.
All right, very good. And then we go, and this is what I was going to bring up earlier. I believe last week the difference in our 2 games is because not only did I pick the Washington football team,
well done,
to cover the 10 points, I said that the Washington football team would hand the Pittsburgh Steelers their very first loss of the year. I locked up the Washington football team, giving the Steelers their very first loss of the year.
Congratulations. I'd like to remind you that I locked up the Rams against the Seahawks when everybody thought I was a lunatic. So we both made our moments.
We did. I just wanted to put it on.
And we're still within a game of each other, struggling somewhere around mediocrity.
We are. Well, that's the story of our life, Sean. But I just wanted to put that back on the record.
Well done. I'll give you your credit there.
That I got that one. But those 11 and now 1 Steelers are 1.5 point road favorite at the what looks to be a surging Buffalo Bills team at 9-3. They're actually starting to make me believers. Not that I thought they weren't a good team, but they're starting to look like one of the few complete football teams in the National Football League this season. The Steelers at 1.5 point road favorite, 47.5 is your over under, which should be a very good Sunday night football game, 8:20 on NBC Sunday night. I just, man, this Steelers team, I said it when the Cowboys almost beat them. I've said it for a couple of weeks that this team, although they were still undefeated, and I gave them credit for winning football games, they just did not look like a undefeated team. They didn't look like a great football team, and they finally got that loss. Now, how do you respond to it? Do you come back and win? I think you're drawing a terrible matchup if you're trying to get a victory. I like the Bills to cover, win this game outright. I'm going to take the over because, quite frankly, you lost Dupree on the defense for the Steelers. I think they had a couple of injuries last night on that defense. So you can't afford to lose pieces on a defense that's already somewhat struggling, and you lost your best player in Dupree. Bills are going to win this game. I'm taking the over. But, I think this should be a pretty decent Sunday night game as far as they go.
Yeah, this should be a good one. I think. I will say this: the Bills have looked good. I don't know if a few games ago, I think back when they were playing the Chiefs, and I really started railing on the Bills defense as a whole. If the team itself heard me, now this you would think the defense had turned it around. I haven't really seen that they have. I mean, and the wins, I don't know how quality they are. Since the loss to the Chiefs and the Titans, you have Jets, Seahawks. You can say what you want about the Seahawks offense, but that defense of yours gave up 44 points to Russell Wilson despite scoring 34 yourselves. You had a close win against New England. Then you lost to Arizona, and then you went and you won 2 more, but it was against the Chargers and the Niners. So I'm not really sure how to handle these wins. I mean, you beat a rookie quarterback, but it's kind of a sieve of a defense in the Chargers. And the Niners defense, you hung up 34 against a pretty good defense, but you still gave up 24 to Nick Mullins. So I'm not really sure what the Bills are. And at least with the Steelers, I think coming out of a sloppy game, they kind of got caught off guard. I expect that offense to be clicking, and if the Bills can't figure out a defense, you're going to be looking at a score very similar to that Seattle game. At least from the other offense. I think the Steelers can put it together, especially and not that Connor's been a huge part of it, but if he can come back and they can have a little consistency.
I think he's
to the running game.
To be back off the COVID.
I think he is, yeah.
He was eligible last night, but because he hadn't practiced, I think they held him out.
Yeah, they held him out, and much to their chagrin, as I think their leading rusher had like 14 yards. So I think it comes back a little bit more normal. I think the second and third receivers, because I feel like the Bills can only cover one wide receiver. So when you have teams with multiple threats like the Seahawks and like the Steelers team, I think they struggle to get the coverage done. I'm going to go ahead and take the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite the fact that I'm with you, thinking they're a little overrated, quite a bit so by the record's sake. I think that they cover this one fairly easily, and I'll go with the over with you.
Speaking of overrated, the Titans got hammered by the Browns this weekend.
Well, they didn't, though.
They did come back. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they lost by a score. the Browns, how do you jump out to that kind of lead at halftime and then be like, yeah, this is fine. Baker Mayfield could have thrown 10 touchdowns that game. Instead, he just had the 5 from the first half. He's like, that's it. That's all I'm going to do today.
Yeah, just enough to almost give me mild hope.
So I went Baker, and he's like, what? I'm like, just remember you're Baker Mayfield. And he was like, oh, yeah, shoot.
All right, Sean, before we close out this week, we go to your weekly award, the Fantasy Irrelevant Touchdown of the Week.
Fantasy Irrelevant Touchdown of the Week. There's plenty of irrelevance to go around this week yet again. We had another Kyle Juszczyk sighting. We had a Ty Johnson 100-yard performance for the New York Jets. And we also had a Jeremy McNichols rookie touchdown in Tennessee, not a Derrick Henry. But none of them made the list. What the hell is even that? None of them made the list, not a one. So let's start with our honorable mention. We go to the Windy City. The Chicago Bears doubled up on the fantasy irrelevance with touchdowns by Cordarrelle Patterson and Cole Kmet. They're your honorable mention candidates for the week. They're not even in the top 3, so we got some gold. Third place, we go to Minnesota. This guy scores roughly 2 touchdowns a year in a pass from Kirk Cousins, which is the only reason it's not number 1. C.J. Ham with his usual touchdown. Yeah, C.J. Ham's sandwich. Here we go. Second, we had a double dipper from the Big Apple with the New York Giants fantasy zombie, Alfred Morris, with 2 touchdowns on the week. Who? If you started him, God bless you. I hope you won your contest with those 2. One of them was receiving.
You're probably in last place.
And one of them was the ultimate because it was Colt McCoy to Alfred Morris on Colt McCoy's only passing touchdown of the week. And you'd say, how is anyone going to beat Colt McCoy to Alfred Morris?
You know what, Sean? I'm actually shocked that the absentee owner in your league that ended up deciding to show up and play this week just to beat me, I'm shocked he didn't have Alfred Morris.
Pick up Alfred Morris. I've even looked at Alfred Morris. That's how sad in one of my leagues, my running backs now. I was like, Alfred Morris had a pretty good game in the last couple of games. Should have started him. Would have been better than Todd Gurley. Anyway, you say, how can anybody beat Colt McCoy to Alfred Morris for the fantasy? Well, I'll tell you. When your defense and special team scores 3 touchdowns and you start playing around with personnel, the New England Patriots, with backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham in the game,
who I was going against,
slings one to Gunnar Olszewski, the gunner, for the who also added a punt return touchdown on the day. So if you had Alfred Morris and Gunnar, you were having yourself a heck of a day, better than my fantasy day, and that is your fantasy irrelevant touchdowns.
Who the hell is this?
Fantasy irrelevant touchdowns of the week.
Absurd. Just absolutely absurd. This is the most ridiculous thing.
The McNichols one almost made the list because Derrick Henry owners were just like dying out there. They're like, how are we not doing anything? And they're like, all right, we're on the one. And they're like, give it to the rook. This kid's like, are you sure? Because Derrick Henry could probably eat me for lunch. Like, just take his touchdown. Do what you want.
Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So congratulations.
Ridiculous.
Congratulations, Gunner. You are this week's ridiculous fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. Sean, let people know where they can follow you before we get out of here.
Yeah, as usual, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Sean Shine State, SHAWN, Sean Shine State. We are on the Twitter. Keep following the Fantasy Relevant Touchdown of the Week. Don't always get to post them all the time. We got a little guy running around, not watching football every day. But stick closely as we get closer to the end of this Week 16, Week 17. You might see a Fantasy Relevant Touchdown of the year. We'll hang into that. But in the meantime, we'll just try to wait for some warmer weather here in Florida and just keep enjoying that Buccaneers sports talk.
There you go. All right, you can follow me at Big Jim Sports, but and just make sure you are following along with the show. And we are at Huddle Up Podcast on Facebook and on Twitter. We are at Huddle Up Pod on Instagram. Follow our home network, NGSC Sports, at ngscsports.com. And make sure you check out the sponsor of the show, Arena Eats, at arenaeats.app. That's arenaeats.app. Look, It's not going to be too long. We get back in these sports stadiums, and you're not going to want to miss a minute of the action after all this time we've had to wait. So make sure you get the Arena Eats app, and you'll be able to get your food delivered directly to your seat, or you go to the bathroom, place the order while you're in line at the bathroom, swing by, pick it up. You'll never miss a minute of the action with Arena Eats. ArenaEats.app. That's ArenaEats.app. Until next week, folks, stay safe, stay smart, and go for the win.